Good morning, good afternoon. I would like to welcome everyone as you are dropping in. Thank you for attending this webinar. Just to make sure you're in the right place, StoryTerrace is a biography writing service that can match you with a writer to turn your life story into a book. And that's what we'll be talking about today. To familiarize yourself, feel free to find the chat button at the bottom of your screen and let us know where you're dialing in from. You will also see there a Q&A button, which you can use to leave us any questions that we will pick up on in this webinar. And while we are waiting for people to join in the first couple of minutes, we wanted to run a quick poll to find out a little bit about you, why you decide to join us today. Here's the first question, which is why are you interested in writing a book, whether it is to share your life story with family and friends, and whether you would like to gift one of our packages, whether you would like to share your story with a wider audience by publishing your book, or whether you would like to write a book to help you promote your business or your professional. And then the second question is at which stage you are at. Most people haven't started from experience, but we have always clients who have already started bits or even have written an entire manuscript when they come to us at StoryTerrace. So if you could fill that out, that would be great. Perfect. I think we can close the poll. Good. So there's a good spread of people who want to publish their book, people who are writing it, for personal and family and friends use, people who are looking to gift, and a few people looking that have filled this out. Although I think lots of people have joined since we launched the poll, and then most people haven't started. That's a very nice sort of bar where the further along, the fewer people got there. Good. Again, a warm welcome to StoryTerrace. Today we will be speaking about a few different topics. And maybe we can go to the next slide. Yeah, we'll do a few introductions because I have two of my colleagues here, Emily and James. We'll spend a few minutes talking about StoryTerrace, our history, and then we'll talk about the Swift process. So this is our innovative process to create a book faster than ever before using technology. We'll have room for Q&A. Both of these sort of sections will take about 15 minutes for a total of a 30-minute webinar, and then we'll have a wrapping up how to get started on your story. But first and foremost, I would like to introduce our editorial director, Emily McCracken. Hi, Emily. Could you share a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rutger. My name is Emily. I am currently the editorial director at StoryTerrace. I have been here a very long time. I obviously love StoryTerrace's mission to create life stories and books for everyone to treasure. I started off as a project editor, working with customers and writers one-on-one to create their books. I then became a managing editor where I managed the frontline teams doing the same thing. And then to the editorial operations manager and now editorial director, where I'm basically in charge of our portfolio of over 600 live projects at any one time, as well as all the suppliers and the processes and platforms that go into creating these books for our clients. So nice to meet you, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Great, thank you, Emily. And then on to James, who is our AI manager and someone who has been at the forefront of AI from, well, I don't know, from when, James? Maybe you tell us.
probably be about 6 months now. Thank you, Rutger. Because it's quite a new technology, it's something that I had to dive into head on. So it's been quite an interesting ride, and it's been a really fun journey. But really, my primary interest was using AI to write sort of compelling stories, and now integrating that with our processes, writing people's biographies. Marrying the two up has actually been really, really exciting and an interesting perspective to take it from. So my role here has actually evolved very, very quickly. We've done a lot of experimentation, a lot of testing. We're at a stage now with this product where we're extremely excited to share it with everyone. And yeah, so that's my role here. And it's just been quite an interesting journey, and you know, lucky to kind of be here at this sort of cutting edge time of technology. So thanks.
Great, thanks, James. I'm sure we'll hear more from you as we run through our process. Then a little bit on our background. StoryTerrace, I started StoryTerrace 9 years ago. I had quite a different professional background. I used to be in consulting, finance, but I've always regretted not recording my grandparents' life stories. I spent a lot of time with them. My mom used to work from home as an academic, which meant over the holidays, she would send me to my grandparents, which I really enjoyed, and my grandfather would talk about the good old days, about how he played sports, how he traveled, how he started a small resistance group in the Second World War, how he moved to the Caribbean with my grandmother to start a doctor's practice. And those stories, they really captivated me. But despite that, when he passed away, they faded much quicker than I expected. And that was really my driver to start StoryTerrace and to find a solution to allow everyone to capture their story in a meaningful way and in an enjoyable way as well, by making it a really easy, transparent process. So at StoryTerrace, we have offices in the UK and in the US. We have a 15-person in-house editorial staff, which is led by Emily. We work with over 600 ghostwriters and interviewers who are all vetted by our team. We've worked on over 4,000 books, including the 600 books that are live now that Emily mentioned. We have our own book creation platform. We work with fixed packages and transparent pricing. That's always been something that's really important to me, because it's, for most people, it's the first time they're making a book when they come to StoryTerrace, and knowing what you're going to get exactly is really important. And then we have leading technology to make this process as good in terms of the quality of the content and as efficient as possible. We do 3 different things at StoryTerrace. So we have StoryTerrace Swift, which is the fastest way and where we use the most technology to create books. We'll talk significantly about that today, creating a book. And then secondly, we have our Classic 360 product, where we use more writing and more editing, and you also have a project manager. So it's really for people who like to have professional support and flexibility throughout the process. And then we have our StoryTerrace Pro, where we work with businesses as well as business leaders, thought leaders, to create books in a process that is very, very familiar, very similar to a commercial process. So if you have an interest in either the 360 or the Pro, you can reach out to us. I would still recommend you to stay on at the webinar, because I think there's still a lot to learn about how our process works, but we can specifically talk more about those 2 types of projects offline as well. Then on to our 8-step project, which starts with your goals. Emily, what kind of goals do people tend to have when they come to StoryTerrace, and how do we discuss those with them?
Yeah, I think it's a similar process to what we saw in the poll results tonight. That a lot of people come to us because they're interested in their own heritage, and they want to capture that and share it with their family, leave a legacy, share the life lessons that they've picked up over the years with their kids and future generations. That's a big group that we have. But we also have a lot of people who have come to us because they've had a unique personal experience. It could be an illness, it could be something traumatic that they would like to process in this way. And we have heard that it's a very cathartic experience, so it makes sense that would be a reason to work with us. People also want to capture special trips, you know, a wedding, the story of a special friendship. We had one for a 40th birthday lately, that was the goal. Or equally, we have people coming to us to promote their profession to their network or for their business. So maybe there's a big conference coming up, and you'd like something more interesting than a business card to share. So those are some of the use cases. They're the big groups, but certainly not all of them.
Great. No, we definitely have some edge cases. We've done a few about dogs already. So I know, don't hesitate if you have an idea that isn't mentioned. We'd love to hear from you. And then, Emily, the interviewer matching. I mean, who are our interviewers, and how do we match them with our clients?
So our interviewers come from our large list of ghostwriters. We have over 600 across the UK and the US. They're each met face-to-face, and I mean via Zoom, but we do require that kind of level of meeting between these applicants and our editorial operations team when we onboard these freelancers. So they are professional writers, which means they are professional interviewers. Within the Swift package, they're using their interviewing skills, but they are all professional writers. We learn a lot about their professional interests, experience, their cultural backgrounds when they start to work with us, and that is how we make the match. So we learn about what our clients want via the questionnaire that they fill out, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then we look at our writer database and we think, who is the right writer for this project's kind of end goal? Who will connect best with this storyteller?
Great. And then how do we? I mean, there are a lot of writers in the world, and not everyone is a StoryTerrace writer. Definitely not everyone who applies to be a StoryTerrace writer becomes one. What is the vetting process that you use?
Sure. So we ask these writer applicants to submit 2 to 3 samples of their written work, long form, short form. We ask for variety. And obviously their CV. And from that, we assess, you know, do we need more of these kinds of writers? Where are we short in the pool? Do they have the relevant experience we're looking for each kind of storyteller we work with? But in particular, we really focus on their ability to build rapport with the storyteller, because interviewing, no matter which product you're interested in that Rucker just showed on the screen, interviewing is really critical. That connection, creating that safe space where a storyteller can feel comfortable sharing details, because that's where you get a rich story, no matter what your sort of goal is in the end. Did that answer the question?
For me, it did, but I welcome any questions in the Q&A, and we will pick those up later from anyone who has joined us. Then on to the next one, reminiscing and thought gathering. I think that very much relates to what you started speaking about. I mean, how do we do that at StoryTerrace, and what would you recommend people to do this part of the process as well as they can? Because we know whatever the topic is that people talk about, even if it isn't their life story or memoir, still reminiscing and thought gathering is often an important element.
It is. It really is, because that's again what goes to create that rich interview, which generates that rich content in your book in the end. So we have a questionnaire, and we have a variety of questionnaires depending on your purpose for purchasing the book. That questionnaire should generate a lot of memories for you. It starts off a little bit overview or high level, and then it comes down into more detail, so that as you're writing, you're really getting more clear on which anecdotes are going to serve the story that you actually want to tell and capture. I would also say you could look through Facebook photo albums, real photo albums. You can call an old friend. You could talk to your family if that's who your main audience is going to be. They're a good group, of course. They often, you know, I can imagine exactly what I would like my mom to put in her book, for example, whereas for her it might be more of a struggle. Equally, just quickly, I'd like to add that I do see sometimes storytellers put a lot of pressure on this phase. So it's good to do, you know, the guidance I just gave, it's good, but equally, I wouldn't overly worry, because we ask our writers, we train our writers to be able to elicit this information from you as well, the detail, the richness. So it's not all on the storyteller to think it up of their own accord, because sometimes that can be a lot of pressure.
No, it is just a part of the process to help get us to the next stage as well as possible, which is the interviews. Around the interviews, I mean, we know that our clients and actually our interviewers as well really love this phase. And why is that, and how do they go about it?
I mean, I think it's all the legwork that goes into it. So the vetting of the writers, the vetting of the interviewers we use, can they build that connection with our storytellers? Do they also kind of love working with StoryTerrace, which we found is true in a lot of cases? So the energy they bring to your interview is that they're dedicated to the mission of trying to document as many important life stories as we can. So that's kind of step one, is the right person in the seat across from you. The interviewers will read your questionnaire. They will also read any notes that came in through kind of your onboarding process. If you engage with the website or with a sales agent, there will be some notes about why you're choosing to make this book. And again, paired with the questionnaire, they're going to start to think about, how should I structure this interview in the way that elicits the most detail, the most emotion, if that's what you're going for. And they just really think deeply about why you're doing this, and then how to best structure the interview so that the book is kind of exactly structured how in the way that kind of meets your goal. I think people really love this. I've done it myself recently, been interviewed by one of our writers, and it's just so rare that we get to sit down and reflect on things that we've done in our life, and it just makes you potentially feel that gratefulness or gratitude or connection with someone, or a memory that you hadn't thought about in a long time, or also see kind of connections through your life that you just don't get that many chances to reflect anymore. So I think that's why our storytellers tell us that they love this particular step in the process so much.
Great. And yeah, for our Swift packages, there are 4 hours of interviews, which are split across at least 2 different sessions, because in our experience, now 2 hours is the max to really get good performance in an interview. If for specific reasons you would like to have shorter interviews for yourself or a family member, then we can work around that as well. Thank you, Emily. That was really great. And then we're on to the next phase, which is where we start generating the first content. And we always start with the chapter outline. James, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this stage really is the building blocks of the book. So all of your chapters are now going to be outlined in detail. And this gives you really an opportunity. So after you've had you've decompressed from the interview, and the transcripts are then obviously generated into these outlines, you get an opportunity to have a read through here, and potentially, if you feel you'd like to make any edits to these as well, if it was included in the interview, this is an opportunity where you can kind of help shape the book and potentially direct some of the additional points that you want to add. Just as an example, when we were doing mine, I remember testing it and adding a couple of extra bullet points where I just wanted a little bit of more information about how I felt in that particular moment. It was just something to help flesh that out. And it's really such a nice opportunity for you to have, you feel like you're not just got that blank page syndrome. You've got this laid out in front of you. It's really well worded, really well structured, and then you feel like it's contained nicely and you could just add to it. So that's a really, really nice process. It just helps you feel supported, but you've got that creative input that you can just add at any point. Or if you're happy with it as it is, you can just approve it and move on to the next stage.
Yes, and as you can see here, now you can't really maybe see the detail, but what you should be able to see here is that there's quite a lot of detail in how we describe what's going to come into a chapter, which really gives you the opportunity to think about if everything is there. The most important anecdotes or points will be mentioned. And how many chapters normally, James, do we generate for our clients?
So currently we're looking at around 7 to 9 chapters. Sometimes when we end up with about 9 chapters, it's usually where someone wants to add additional information at the end. Perhaps they want to leave an inspirational message to their family. In one case, we've had a really interesting introduction that kind of prefaces the book, and that just bumped the chapter content, but also the word count just remained the same. So we just evenly distribute the word count throughout the book.
Great. And then if you could briefly describe how we sort of help create the right style and tone for the books.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next stage after that, once you're happy with the outline, we've developed a process that really helpful, really beneficial in making sure that the book is written in the style that resonates with you and your kind of the way that you want to be perceived and the way you want others to read. So we developed a process where we can apply style samples to a particular anecdote or a certain vignette of your interview. And what we found was that people were really interested in having the choice between these because we could determine perhaps 3 to 5 style samples. In this case, what we offer was inspirational style, a nostalgic style, and a journalistic style. These were the most popular that we found really help shape the way that the writing is done. But of course, it still retains the storyteller's unique voice. So all the language that the storyteller has used is still retained, but it's just the way that it's structured in different ways to help support that tone that you want your book to be. And you can obviously see that written before you make the choice. So it's not just a title of the words, it's actually, you get to see it written out for you before you go ahead and proceed with that. So it's a really nice step. It's a really nice way of ensuring that your book will come out the way that you expect it to.
Yes, and I think, from experience, actually, people find it once they get this, maybe inspirational, nostalgic, journalistic doesn't mean so much when you see it on this screen, but actually when you read the examples, you can still feel it's your own voice, but quite quickly, most people are able to decide what's best fits with their purpose and how they feel it matches with their personality. Good, thanks, James. On to the next one, which is where we generate the full draft for the book.
Yeah, so this is really where everything all comes together. That orchestrated method of bringing all of those elements into one place is really this key point in the process. And obviously, as you can see here detailed, we have the questionnaire, the transcript, the outline, and the style and tone, all kind of coalesces into the final chapter content. So as you're building your book, as the creative process is happening, you're working with the technology here, you're still having that creative input at each step, but you're seeing it happen generated in stages. So we always look at it from the top down until we get to actually generating the content. So once that happens, you're kind of comfortable that you know all of these steps have led to that moment and that you're more than likely going to get a very good first draft. And you've always got that opportunity to come back to those draft chapters and make additional changes and amendments. I remember on mine, there was something about mentioning me playing a particular instrument. And I just wanted to kind of like mention what instrument specifically it was, because that mattered to me. And you have the opportunity to put in a little bit more detail here and there. Or of course, if you're happy with everything that's been generated and all the heavy lifting has been done for you, you can just let us know when it's ready to print.
Great. Yeah, I think there's one more step, James, going from the text to print. So I wouldn't want to skip that. But every client has, whenever they start with us, the opportunity to start actually uploading photos, and then in a very sort of convenient manner drag them into the right chapters, add captions. So our Swift books, for which you are interviewed for 4 hours. They're 55 to 60 pages long. They're hardcover books. They consist of 7,500 words and up to 20 photos. And they will be printed in full color throughout the book, which creates a really beautiful document, which should last 100 years or maybe even longer. You also get a PDF version of your book. You're able to buy extra copies, and that really basically brings all that effort that you've put into, and the heart and soul that you've put in your book out into your hands. And it's very special and important a moment. Good. Thank you, James and Emily, for explaining that all so thoroughly. I'm sure there are still lots of questions, though, so we're going to dive in and start picking up on a number of them in a relatively quick succession. So there's a question from Guy. He has 3 parts to his book: narrative, technical, financial, legal, social commentary. And the question is thoughts. Okay. The thoughts on that is, it's sometimes difficult to have multiple goals with your books. I'm not sure if that's the case here. Sometimes if that's the case, it's also maybe better to go through our 360 packages, which have added flexibility, which can also be significantly longer than our Swift books. So that's my initial thought on that. And then Seema has a question: can the story in the diary of a great grandfather be incorporated in the story? Yes, you can incorporate pictures yourself of the book. Also, you can use obviously all the content that you have read. If you would like the writer to read all of that and start using that in a very specific, creative way, then again, that may be more of a 360 rather than a Swift package, and our advisors can talk you through that. Betty has written a third of her story. Betty, we have lots of clients who have written a part of their story. We can incorporate that into our process, also our Swift process. So that's not a problem at all. We even get people who have written their an entire manuscript, and we can help them make sure that that gets into the shape that they would like it to be before we design and print it. Elizabeth asks, are you able to add humor? I'm going to pass this question on to James.
Yes, absolutely we can. It's really important to obviously direct that to your interviewer during the time when you're putting your thoughts together. It is quite capable of conveying humor, obviously subtle nuances that sometimes may need to come directly from your voice. As long as that's clearly stated, that can be included. And of course, there are additional sample styles that we can apply when it comes to your project. And you could potentially see whether that fits the vision that you had for your book and whether or not that content's generated with the correct type of humor. So it's possible. It just is part of shaping the narrative at the beginning and confirming that you're happy with it.
Right. And I have a question from Derek. I mean, it sounds like you use AI. Yes, we do, Derek. And then the question is, what gets lost in the use of AI in terms of human emotional authenticity, James?
So as long as it's actually included in the interview transcript, and as long as it's actually built into the outline, we can make sure that if there are certain things that are relevant emotionally and compelling, we can make sure that they're actually recorded, and we can ensure that there is more detail and weight added to those specific elements if you make that clear. And also, as a reminder to everyone that you have that opportunity in the outline to put additional points in if there's something that needs a little bit more direction for the AI to write that.
And Emily, to the same question, like, how do the interviewers help with this?
Sorry, could you repeat the context of that?
Yes. So, I mean, the question was what gets lost in the use of AI in terms of human emotional authenticity. And obviously, the interviewers play a very big role in making sure nothing gets lost. Can you touch a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So some of the new interview guidance we've been giving to writers who will be using this AI approach is to, as the storyteller is telling that anecdote, we may have used to have relied on the writer's ability to then notice, this person's getting emotional. I can see that this is a sort of poignant story, or it's humorous, or it's like a joyful moment. I'm going to write it in such a way. But now we've actually added to our interview guidelines, be sure to ask those follow-up questions and elicit those statements. I felt joyful in this moment. I felt incredibly heartbroken about this. How did you feel? And that goes for more than just emotion. We've set some guidelines in place to get more extra content, such as remember to stop and ask, what was the weather like that day? What color was the room that you were in, to really lay a rich scene. So the writer's been instructed to ask more of those kinds of questions to not lose that detail. I hope that answers.
And that helps to get the emotion, but also to paint the picture of that moment for the readers. Thank you. And by the way, we're half an hour in. We have a few more questions, so feel free to drop off. But if you would like to stay, we do have some more interesting questions to go through. There's a question here from Richie, whether books are published. So standard, we print books. Standard in the Swift package, 1 book is included. At any stage in the process, you can buy more. We also help people with self-publishing. So if you would like your book to be published on Amazon or wider and be able to be ordered in bookstores, we can also help with all of those elements. The maximum word count for Swift, or the word count is 7,500 words, but we've created books of 80,000 words, etc., through our other packages. In terms of the rights of the books, as long as you sign a very simple form where you take responsibility for the content, which is the content that you have approved yourself, you own 100% of the rights for that book, and you can do anything with that you would like. There's a question from David: how much editing can we add to the Swift version? Maybe I pass that one on to James.
Yeah, of course. As much editing as you like. So there's the opportunity to include additional content, obviously making sure we don't go over the 7,500 words. There is a small amount of leeway because we are understanding of the process, may need to include a little bit more, a little bit less. And you're of course welcome to go through and make any amendments or edits to the chapters as they are. And our bookmaker platform that we use allows that full flexibility as you would with any word processor like Google Docs. It's available for you to you could use that, if you have a sudden strike of inspiration at midnight, you could hop on there and make those changes, and that's fine.
Good, thank you. And then there's a question from Stephen. Stephen asks sort of about the 360 and the Pro books, whether the same 8 steps are used. At a very high level they are, but there is, for example, in both the 360 and the Pro books, there is more interaction with the interviewer. Isn't just the interviewer is also available to make writing changes, so you can provide comments and discuss those with the writer in the 360 packages. When it comes to the Pro books, we use developmental editors who have worked on well-known biographies, worked for big publishing houses. So there's an additional sort of rigor around the editorial process, which is why we call it Pro, because these are often books that are for the professional segments. And I think that brings us almost to the end. I see one more question. I would like to give this to my mom for Christmas. Is there a physical gift that I can give? Yes, that is possible. We have welcome boxes that you can order as well with your package. And I think that concludes the webinar. Of course, I'd like to thank James and Emily for their insights, but especially I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. In terms of the next steps, you can schedule a consultation, which I definitely recommend if you are thinking also about some of the packages we didn't discuss in detail today, by replying to any of our emails, and one of the team will get back to you to set up an appointment. You can also go to our website, StoryTerrace-swift.com, where you can order your package. And we will also be sending you an email to order your package directly from the link in that email. So thank you very much for joining and for your great questions.
Bye-bye. Thank you.